Kesha sues Illuminati handler, MK Ultra exposed. Hey BrainScratch fans, it's me, John Lorden, and today we're going to talk about a topic that if you've researched conspiracy theories at all, you've probably bumped into, and that is the term MK Ultra. If you've read up on the JFK assassination, there's even theories about Elisa Lam that kind of tie around a potential MK Ultra conspiracy theory. You've bumped into this term. Illuminati will frequently get tied up with this MK Ultra term. But what is it? What does it mean? Is it real? We're going to jump into all that today. And in particular, is there something about the media and MK Ultra? Well, we're going to touch on that also. First off, to understand MK Ultra, there's a few other CIA operations that you have to know about. One of them was called Operation Paperclip, and this was a project in which former Nazi scientists were brought to the U.S. and essentially assigned into new research and development positions within our country. And that was done to hopefully make sure that no other countries got a leg up on us in terms of what they could possibly be developing. And there's a little seed in that that leads directly into MK Ultra. Also worth noting is Operation Mockingbird. This is straight from Wikipedia. Operation Mockingbird was a secret campaign by the United States Central Intelligence Agency to influence media. And essentially what they did there was they were paying several reporters and editors to promote certain ideas, to hide certain other ideas. And as you'll see, misinformation comes up frequently whenever you start researching these types of CIA operations. Also worth noting, I did a radio interview this past weekend. If you check out my Johnny vlog from this week, you can find links to it in there. And the person I met, her name is Solaris Blue Raven. She had direct experience with an MK Ultra project. She's sending me a documentary about her experience, so I will be sure to do a follow-up video as soon as I get that and kind of review her information and let you know if it's a good documentary. I have a feeling it's going to be interesting, if nothing else. And that way we can start this conversation about MK Ultra. And I also want to get you going on the comments on this because it's such a wide topic and there are many aspects to discuss in it. Like I mentioned, it's tied to most popular conspiracy theories in some way, and I think there's a lot for us to kind of chew on and digest. And most importantly, is there some aspect of MK Ultra that might be working in this Operation Mockingbird way of trying to manipulate our media? You know, is Kesha really some product of MK Ultra, etc.? So I started my investigation watching a video that if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually check out for free. If you don't have Amazon Prime, you've got to pay to rent it. Looks like, you know, you can get it for as little as $4.
Did you know that the US government has drugged, raped, tortured and murdered United States citizens in a massive experiment that spanned decades?
Yeah, you heard that right. Drugged, raped, tortured, and even murdered citizens in an experiment that went on for decades. Let me just give you a brief review of this. This film, American Mind Control, MK Ultra, it was made in 2014. It is, I think it's only about an hour long, a little bit over an hour long. However, it does include some older footage that really kind of makes you question the way that the military was presenting information to us, particularly back in the 50s and 60s, and what kinds of things they were worried about. There was a lot of concern around people, the idea of communism basically being seen by Americans as a good idea, and they do a lot of effort in trying to stop that idea from growing in those old videos that they show in this. So, if nothing else, the quality of just being able to watch those older videos and look at the way that our country was representing these ideas and presenting them to us is definitely worth checking out. Here, if you just do a quick search on "is MK Ultra" in Google, you'll see the auto results come back with the top one being "is MK Ultra real?" And as we're going to find out today, yes, it's definitely real. Is MK Ultra still active? That is a big, big question. I don't think we're going to be able to answer today, but if you have some ideas and thoughts and links to that type of information, please drop them in the comments below. Once again, is MK Ultra still happening? Is it real? Is it true? Well, you can actually go right to Wikipedia and search on Project MK Ultra, and they have a pretty lengthy article there detailing a lot about it. Essentially, Project MK Ultra was kind of a secret operation going on within the CIA that took a pretty significant amount of its budget and was able to use that money without any major oversight. And as you can imagine, that type of money and power seems to have led to some corruption. Now, what is it? At its basis nature, it was approximately 150 different projects that were specializing in the following points. 1. Substances which will promote illogical thinking and impulsiveness to the point where the recipient would be discredited in public. 2. Substances which increase the efficiency of mentation and perception. I'm not even sure what mentation is. I'll have to look that up. Materials which will cause the victim to age faster/slower in maturity. Materials which will promote the intoxicating effect of alcohol. Materials which will produce the signs and symptoms of recognized diseases in a reversible way so that they may be used for malingering, etc. Materials which will cause temporary/permanent brain damage and loss of memory. Substances which will enhance the ability of individuals to withstand privation, torture, and coercion during interrogation and so-called brainwashing. So not only do they want the effects and the power to brainwash and manipulate people, but hopefully some type of antidote that they can use themselves. Materials and physical methods which will produce amnesia for events preceding and during their use. Physical methods of producing shock and confusion over extended periods of time and capable of surreptitious use. Substances which will produce physical disablement, such as paralysis of the legs, acute anemia, etc. Substances which will produce a chemical that can cause blisters. Substances which will alter personality structure in a way that the tendency of the recipient to become dependent upon another person is enhanced. A material which will cause mental confusion of such a type that the individual under its influence will find it difficult to maintain a fabrication under questioning, kind of a truth serum. Substances which will lower the ambition and general working efficiency of men whose, when administered in undetectable amounts. You know, that last one, I wonder if someone's already using that on our government, you think? Substances which promote weakness or distortion of the eyesight or hearing faculties, preferably without permanent effects. A knockout pill, now that sounds like an idea from the 50s and 60s, which can surreptitiously be administered in foods, drinks, cigarettes, as an aerosol, etc., which will be safe to use, provide a maximum amount of amnesia, and be suitable for use by agents on an ad hoc basis. Wow, that sounds like something that would be in that 60s Batman show, doesn't it? A material which can surreptitiously, they really like that word, a material which can be surreptitiously administered by the above routes and which in very small amounts will make it impossible for a person to perform physical activity, once again, incapacitating people. Now, for the records that remain, essentially what happened was a CIA director in the early 70s sent out a demand that all the records be destroyed, and apparently that went through. So it's very hard to piece together what all the experiments were, to trace especially the results of the experiments, which were highly questionable because typically these CIA agents were not scientifically trained. But what happened was apparently 20,000 documents were sent and filed in the finance department, and from those records people have been able to kind of reassemble some of the history around some of these projects, and what they learned was pretty troubling. Also worth noting, well, this is probably the biggest one. One of their methods was investigating the use of the drug LSD, and this became a big focus of at least one of their projects. it got to the point where they were slipping LSD to other agents, not telling them about it. There was a memo that was released internally within the CIA saying, basically, hey people, don't spike the punch bowl at the Christmas party with LSD because we don't think that that would be a good idea. And we're going to get to one particular case with the LSD. Some people actually credit the CIA with creating the rise in popularity that happened in the late 60s around the hippie movement, you know, dawning of the age of Aquarius and all that good stuff, because the CIA was funding research for LSD at different universities. And I've seen different numbers on this, but somewhere around 40 universities were basically being paid and given these drugs to do the research. And Timothy Leary is even quoted in one video that I saw, and he's talking about how the research didn't go very far because essentially the professors fell in love with the drug and started using it themselves. But outside of drugs, I just wanted to also mention hypnosis, which they did find records of. They traced a doctor that did some work in Canada related to erasing people's memory that was pretty severe. And electronics. And this one actually has a sub-project number 119. And that is the one that has me most curious, because if you really think about our modern culture in terms of how we access information and each other, there is a very thick layer of electronics between you and me right this second. And is there the potential that somewhere along that way, that somewhere in that circuit path, information could be manipulated, some type of conditioning could be sent to your end of the screen to make you feel one way or another about what I'm saying? That has, for me currently, that has probably the strongest implication of how things could still be currently be going on with these MK Ultra type secret projects. So now they even went as far as going to brothels and then basically drugging people that were showing up at the brothels and then filming everything that happened in their LSD research. And as I mentioned before, it got to the point where agents were drugging each other, drugging other agents, and that's where we get to the story of Frank Olsen, who was actually a doctor that worked, he had a pretty awesome career for what seems like a relatively short life. But the short end of his story was he went to a meeting and was drugged with LSD, essentially had a bad trip compared to everyone else, and a number of days later, when it was being they sent him to a psychiatrist within the CIA, and they were saying, you know, we probably should put you into a hospital. And the last night before he was supposed to go in, apparently he leapt to his death from either 10 stories or 13 stories. I'm seeing discrepancies on that, and people love to put the number 13 in wherever they can. But from a news report that I saw from the 1970s, it actually said it was 10 stories. But either way, this man appeared to kill himself. A little more background on him. He has his own entry on Wikipedia. He was an American bacteriologist, biological warfare scientist, and CIA employee who worked at Camp Detrick in Maryland. And it even says right here, it goes right into it in the first paragraph, he was covertly dosed with LSD by his CIA supervisor, and 9 days later plunged to his death from the window of a New York hotel room. Some, including the U.S. government, term his death suicide, while others allege murder. So what's pretty strange about that is, of course, the CIA was not going to be upfront with his family. I'm going to show you a little video clip here. And by the way, all these links that I'm going through, they're in the description box below. I highly recommend you check them out for yourself. Let me know if I'm getting anything wrong. Let me know if there's other information that you think is important. I'm more than certain we're going to do a follow-up video on this. But here is an interview with his wife.
The best-known case is that of this man, Frank Olsen, a chemist employed by the Army Chemical Corps who in 1953 was slipped LSD unknowingly at a meeting with CIA officials. Shortly after that, Olson went into severe depression. He ended his life at this New York hotel by diving through a shaded closed window in his 10th floor room. Frank Olsen was the first known fatality in the CIA's LSD program. Olson left behind a widow Alice and 3 children, but it would be years before they learned the real story of his death. Shortly after his suicide, Alice Olson was visited by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the man who had administered the drug, and by Robert Lashbrook, his deputy, who was the last person with Frank Olsen the night of his death.
It was probably to check me out and see whether I was handling myself and handling the situation, whether I was hysterical. And I'm sure they left the house feeling ever so much better because I had been gracious and hospitable to them, so that I must have played right into their hand and made them feel fine.
23 years later, how did you feel about that meeting?
My anger was unbelievable at how I had been duped for this length of time, and the anguish which was unnecessary.
Anyone who knew...
As you can imagine, pretty terrible thing for a wife to have to face. So what happened is in the mid-70s, after that batch of 20,000 documents were found, President Ford issued an order for this to be investigated, and out of that investigation, that's where some of this information came out. She was actually paid $750,000, and her son Eric were invited to the White House, where President Ford publicly apologized to them. So the question, is MK Ultra real? We can definitely say yes, at least it was real. Now, according to the official word on the CIA, they ended those operations, but there are former employees that are kind of popping up here and there that are saying, you know what, there's no way that this operation ended. It might have been renamed or recoded to something else. And if you think about that list we went over of everything that they were trying to do, those are pretty much how, if you were a warmonger or someone that had to face national security, aren't those the types of tools that you would want in your employ? I mean, knockout gas, truth serum, being able to make certain people feel like they have a disease of some kind, erasing memory. I mean, even the fictional Men in Black, that's a regular tool of theirs, is wiping out people's memory. Discrediting people, being at the top of the list. I mean, that's a normal tactic used by politicians anytime we hit a political season. This is a very good website called frankolsenproject.org, and it actually chronicles what happened beyond just the point of them making this, or getting this money and making this trip to the White House. The son, Eric, went on after his mother died and had Frank's body exhumed, and they conducted another autopsy. In that autopsy, they find what looks like blunt force trauma, possibly caused by a hammer to his temple. So there is also some scientific analysis about the glass, what type of force it would have taken for the hotel glass to break there, and the fact that essentially a high-performance athlete wouldn't have been able to jump out that window and cause enough force for the glass to break. So the new theory is he was actually in the room with the man that it mentioned before, and the theory is possibly he was struck with the hammer was used to break the glass, and then his body was thrown out. This has gone back through courts time and time again, but this settlement actually made it sticky. And I believe it was as recent as 2012 when another judge reviewed this. Eric kept pressing on this issue, and the judge is basically quoted as saying that, because of how this was handled, there's nothing that he can do to continue the case. However, it's his feeling that what is being brought up to him appears to be true. So even if you consider the tragedy of him being dosed and potentially killing himself, now you can understand the reality that that doesn't even appear to be the case. He was becoming disgruntled. He was about ready to abandon his post, And it seems like the CIA was afraid that he might go and talk about these operations, and they couldn't risk that, so he had to disappear. Really, really sad story. So before we wrap this up, I know I started this with media, and I kind of want to end it with media because you do see it so frequent. I mean, I've seen stories about, Britney Spears is an obvious one, even Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus. I mean, basically anyone that's popular, if they do something a little off-kilter, the MK Ultra tag just comes ripping right out. However, Roseanne Barr has done quite a bit of discussion about it, and she seems to have a very strong opinion.
Hollywood is the one that keeps all this power structure and all this culture of racism and sexism and classism and genderism and all of it in place. They continually feed it, and they make a lot of money doing it, and they do it at the behest of their masters who run everything. So they're not going to get brave enough to do that. I mean, I think that there aren't many of us who are brave enough to do that, and I'm just I'm lucky that I can do it, and I feel that I do it on behalf of many people in Hollywood too. I go to Hollywood parties, or occasionally I go to Oscar parties and things like that, and people, big stars, people will grab me by the arm and take me aside and say, "I just want to thank you for the things you say." And it blows my mind, but that's the culture. It's a culture of fear for sure. And it's a big culture of mind control too. MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood. If you don't know, Google that and look into it.
Well, we've talked about
MK Ultra rules in Hollywood, according to Roseanne, and talk about discrediting and misinformation campaigns. I mean, we've heard a lot of things about Roseanne in the past that might make you think, oh, she's a wackadoodle, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But if you look at the truth, particularly in the art that she created, she really addressed classism. This video is very good about talking about some of the subjects that the Roseanne show brought to public awareness well before it was popular, such as homosexuality. They had, I think, the first lesbian kiss happened on that show. So it was really cutting edge in terms of its content. Can you think of any other shows that are really pushing the envelope like that nowadays? I don't think so. I think big business pretty much has a firm clamp on the voice of these artists now. But if nothing else, maybe you should check out her show. And apparently she's also been doing some blogging with some more details on this that you could look into about her theories on MK Ultra and how it could be affecting Hollywood. So, BrainScratch friends, family, subscribers, I want to ask you, do you think that MK Ultra is still in effect? Do you think that the government would have adequately put an end to these? Do you think that these tools might be being used in current media to control certain people, to sway opinions one way or the other? There's a lot to talk about on this case, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments and information about it, so please drop that below. Thank you once again for joining me on this new topic in BrainScratch. I hope you're having a great one, and I will see you next time. Take care.